Hi, I'm lovely Laura, death care practitioner, incorporating end of life, funeral, and grief related interests. The aim of my game is to have people recognize that they are alive and that those that we love are to be cherished in life, so that when we die, we do so on a higher vibration, able to celebrate the life that we have lived or have witnessed. If we are dying on a higher vibration, understanding the purpose of death, then we'll return or begin the next journey, wherever that may be, on a higher vibration, and we will surely continue to rise. Humanity has sunk to such low levels of awareness that we're barely human anymore. Indeed, the drive that is in full effect on Earth is to wipe away humanity and install machinery to maintain the systems that we currently prop up. If you're following my work, then you will know that I'm vocal on the subject of decolonizing death, funeral, and grief spaces. I'm a keen sociologist. I've written books, created resources, and started two organizations designed to help people of all colors, nations, tribes, clans, and countries recognize the importance of planning for death and recognizing the lasting effects of grief. I'm an overall passionate investigator of death, and it is an ongoing discussion that needs to be spoken of more honestly and openly. My thoughts are my own and not shared with the intention of swaying thoughts or actions of others. My thoughts are compounded by observations that are clear for everyone to see and link. This is simply my interpretation of what I see. Now, I can't say that I've been avidly watching the story unfold, but I have had an eye on the headlines because I'm interested by the, is it a furore of the latest folk devil. What is a folk devil? Well, a folk devil is a person who is blamed for a heinous crime. Hatred toward the folk devil is whipped up into a mass movement against the individual. And that creates a moral panic. And that sends experts into a tizzy. Apologies are issued, acts and behaviours are denounced, new laws are written, policies, legislations, and regulations, and all sorts are implemented as a result. Charities crank up, books are written, and projects are born for victims so that they can heal and recover from the heinous crimes, whilst institutions quietly self-regulate and keep going. Recently, folk devils are people who speak their mind and get cancelled. Like, I will probably be cancelled one day in the future for speaking my mind. Back in the day, it would be people, though, who were of different groups and organizations or individuals that carried out abhorrent acts. A recent folk devil is Philip Schofield, for example. He has been eclipsed by others since his shame was uncovered, but he is still covered in shame. Interestingly, if it wasn't for the revelations about his private life, he would have been covering the sensational story about the UK's most recent folk devil, Lucy Letby, a paediatric nurse who has been sentenced for killing 7 babies for sure, although there are another 6 that she may have attempted to kill. In all, Lucy Letby is likely to have sought to kill or injure more, within the range of about 4,000 children that have passed through her care. Lucy has completely obliterated the wickedness toll of the baby killer, Beverly Allitt, who in 1993 received 13 life sentences in Nottingham for killing 4 infants and attempting to murder 3 others between the months of February and April in 1991. As somebody with an interest in death and rebirth, this story is filled with levels of injustice that don't actually start or stop with Lucy Letby, but those who actually continued to allow her to work within that institution. Like in the case of Jimmy Savile, there are people that turned a blind eye. Described in the press as the vanilla baby killer, the nice girl, Lucy did not look like she could ever be responsible for such heinous crimes against babies because she was nice. She was innocent looking. She was an English rose. She's a white girl of middle-class parents, and that alone is the ignorance that killed and harmed those babies. Literally, the headlines explain all we need to know about the reasons why those who worked with her and tried to raise the alarm on numerous occasions were ignored, lambasted, and even forced to apologise to her. What we are currently witnessing in the UK is the result of white privilege. White privilege allowed Letby to continue her murderous spree. White privilege saw her moved out of the unit, and white privilege promoted her to a clerical role. White privilege believed and protected Lucy. And why? Because the hospital couldn't bear the thought of believing that she, a pure, lily-white, ordinary woman, could possibly be a murderer. And naturally, they feared the damage of dealing with her and the result of their very, very much damaged reputation, which now I would say is in the gutter. Lucy Letby is a cold-blooded murderer, without a doubt. She's also a scapegoat until her managers and those directly up her chain of command are equally sentenced. The names Lucy and Laura are quintessentially English, representing the most perfect or typical example of quality or class. I very much doubt, though, that I would have been able to get as far as Lucy did had I have been in her position. Her opportunist endeavours were allowed because she's white. I'm not white. And any non-white person in her position attempting or succeeding in doing such an awful thing would have been hauled over the coals from the moment the first child died in her care. And the media would have had a complete field day. Although the coverage of the case has been quite extensive, the levels of vitriol would have been 10 times worse if Lucy had been black or brown. So many people, especially of the African diaspora, cringe when we hear of deplorable acts in the news. Our first thought is often, please God, don't let them be black. Because we, as a group, and our wider nations, going back through the Caribbean and to our home continent, commonly referred to as Africa, are the original folk devils. It is commonly believed that we are incapable of anything other than uncouth behaviour, and yet so many of us were taught by our parents that to succeed in life, we have to work 10 times harder than the white man, be exemplary, forgiving, and as unobtrusive as our skin will allow. Being unobtrusive hasn't worked well for us at all. In fact, to our detriment, we have been raised by fear-based narratives that have left us underrepresented in every institution and industry within the Western hemispheres and dominated by people of other races all over the world. An article written by Candice Braithwaite and published in the Guardian newspaper in April 2023 carried the headline, "Black British women die in childbirth at an appalling rate. I'm tired of fighting the racist system in vain." The subheading went on to explain that Black women are 4 times more likely than white women to die giving birth. Fixing that requires change that goes way beyond healthcare. There is a narrative that the only difference between Black and white people is the colour of our skin. That is not actually the case. We are different. In fact, we are all different. And in a world where humanity is being replaced by artificial intelligence, our difference is to be celebrated. We are all unique, and we each have our own wants and needs, regardless of our colour, our background, our heritage. Unfortunately, our needs are often ignored, especially in the medical field. My mum was a fully qualified nurse, and she was often told by her white patients to keep her dirty Black hands off them. She was often called a nigger, and she had to suck it up. This is common, and often the colleagues of African and Caribbean British-born Black nurses turn a blind eye. Why? Because they can. Anyone complaining in the field is seen as a problem. And if you dare point a finger at the wrongdoing of anyone you work with, you put yourself in a very isolating firing line. Your name is tarnished. And as they say, mud sticks. Another common belief is that people, Black people specifically, don't feel pain. I myself have been accused of faking illness. I was once told that I would be discharged from hospital following an operation because nothing was wrong with me. A consultant and several white male students stood at the foot of my bed and told me that I was making my pain up. I couldn't walk. I was in agony. My back was completely gone. I had explained to them when I arrived at the hospital, after having been sent there by my GP, that the problem was on my back, and yet they operated in my womb area to see why I might be in pain. They wouldn't listen to me. So I discharged myself, and I ended up being rushed back to hospital with sepsis. I know that if I had looked like Lucy, I wouldn't be telling this story. Moreover, if I looked like Lucy, I wouldn't be doing this video. It turned out, according to x-rays, that I had a crumbling spine of a 90-year-old. I was burnt out, and I spent the best part of the next decade bedbound. So many Black men and women are dismissed by clinicians who refuse to believe that we are experiencing pain. Their racial bias kills us in the millions within the medical space. And because of this fear of rocking the perceived boat of security that is actually set against us, in this predominantly white institution, we get nowhere in receiving justice for our pains or losses. The complaint system is set so that we will physically or emotionally tire out or run out of resources if we attempt to pursue claims against the machine that is the NHS. Although filled with well-meaning and unassuming legends, killers are protected and roam freely in gowns and masks, pervading an air of authority and superiority that turns most patients docile under their tone. That's why I am an ardent supporter of giving birth at home and dying at home. In all honesty, I must say that I'm always surprised at the level of surprise by white people when something like this happens. White women can't possibly be baby killers. It's absolutely impossible. Historically, though, many babies born to the enslaved were murdered at their hands. Moreover, I am also surprised at the surprise displayed by Black people who suffer at the hands of less well-meaning operatives within the NHS. The truly racist in the world are the ones who have authority and the ability to alter your life, dictate your level of education, food consumption, health, housing, and financial prowess. We exist within a system that is not meant for us, and we continue to cramp ourselves within it. We don't have to, but we do. In my book, Tapestries of Grief, I explain that it's never been in the interest of the oppressor to liberate the oppressed. It simply doesn't make sense. You can't beat someone at their own game. They will always move the goalposts to accommodate their comfort. And if by chance you do score a win against them, they will make you suffer for it. My final word is to recommend you watch the 2004 TV series called Bodies, which is set in an obstetrics gynecology department. Casualty, Holby City, and a slew of other, medical-based TV programs constantly tell us what is happening behind the scenes. They have to tell us. We think it's entertainment, but it's facts displayed for our pleasure. And they will continue to create these programs to satisfy our lust for what we think is fabrication, fantasy. Consider now the fact that up and down the country, there are going to be actresses that are looking at themselves in the mirror to see how best they can portray the story of Lucy Letby to enhance their acting careers. Lucy Letby is like a story that is going to keep on giving. You can decide how you see the story play out. But just know that there are so many deep, deep levels to this shame. And ensure that your views are focused in the right direction.